Welcome to Fear Files, where the darkness reveals its deepest secrets. Tonight, we journey into the heart of horror with a chilling tale that will haunt your dreams. Picture this: a group of fearless urban explorers drawn by the allure of a forgotten asylum. What they find within those crumbling walls will test their sanity and push them to the brink. Prepare yourself for a descent into madness as we uncover the malevolent force that has kept Holleridge Asylum in its grip for decades. This is a story of terror, survival, and the dark secrets that linger in the shadows. Dare to watch. The nightmare begins now.
Nikita Carter's camera clicked incessantly as she snapped photos of the crumbling facade of Holleridge Asylum. The old building, shrouded in a thick, unnatural fog, loomed over her and her team like a dark sentinel. Its once grand architecture had long since fallen into disrepair. Broken windows gaped like vacant eyes, and ivy clawed up the walls like nature's attempt to reclaim its territory. "It's even worse than I imagined," Mark said, adjusting his flashlight as he scanned the surroundings. His voice trembled slightly, betraying his excitement. Mark was the team's historian, obsessed with documenting forgotten places. He had been the one to suggest this ill-fated expedition. "Yeah, well, it's going to make for some great shots," Nikita replied, her voice steady despite the creeping unease she felt. Her freelance work had brought her to countless abandoned places, but Holleridge was different. The air seemed heavier here, saturated with a lingering sense of dread. "Let's not waste any time," Lily chimed in. She was the team's tech specialist, always ready with the latest gadgets to capture every detail. "I want to get the full spectrum readings before the batteries die." The team, Nikita, Mark, Lily, and Jake, had come to Holleridge with the intention of exploring its dark corridors and capturing the decay of a once feared institution. Rumors of hauntings had intrigued them, but none of them were truly prepared for what they would uncover. As they slipped through a hole in the rusted gate, the old asylum's interior greeted them with an eerie silence, punctuated only by the occasional drip of water from a leaky ceiling. The dim beam of their flashlights cut through the darkness, revealing peeling paint and debris-strewn floors. The walls, once white and sterile, were now stained with mildew and covered in disturbing graffiti. "This place is like a graveyard," Jake muttered, his voice muffled by the thick dust in the air. He was the skeptic of the group, always quick to dismiss any supernatural explanations. Nikita shushed him, focusing her camera on an old, rusted gurney left in a corridor. The photograph would be perfect, but as she adjusted her lens, she thought she heard faint whispers in the distance. She dismissed it as a trick of the mind, a side effect of the oppressive atmosphere. Lily was busy setting up her electromagnetic field meter. "Getting some unusual readings here," she said, her brow furrowing. "It's probably just residual energy from the old electrical systems, but it's still weird." "Let's keep moving," Mark suggested, leading the way into what seemed to be the administration wing. Dust-covered files and broken furniture lay scattered about, and the air was thick with the scent of mildew and decay. The explorers ventured deeper into the asylum, their steps echoing off the hollow walls. They passed abandoned patient rooms, each more dismal than the last. Nikita's flashlight illuminated a series of old medical charts pinned to a corkboard. The charts were yellowed and brittle, documenting a variety of treatments and experiments. "I've read about these," Mark said, his voice low. Holleridge was infamous for its brutal treatments. They used to conduct all sorts of unethical experiments here. "Sounds like a perfect horror story," Lily replied with a nervous laugh. "Let's just hope we don't end up as part of it." As the group approached what appeared to be the central ward, they were met with a sudden chill. Their breath misted in the air, and a low, mournful moan seemed to seep from the walls. Nikita's camera flickered, and she caught glimpses of shadowy figures darting in and out of her lens. "Did you see that?" Jake asked, his voice now unsteady. He had been the most skeptical, but even he couldn't ignore the growing sense of unease. Before anyone could respond, a sudden loud bang echoed through the corridor. The group jumped, their hearts racing. Lily's EMF meter spiked wildly, and the lights of their flashlights flickered. "We need to get out of here," Jake said urgently. "This place is messing with us." Nikita, however, was drawn to an old door, partially hidden behind a pile of rubble. It had a faded sign that read, "Isolation Ward." Something compelled her to open it, despite the growing dread in her chest. The door creaked open, revealing a long, dark hallway. The walls here were even more decayed, and the air was colder. The oppressive atmosphere seemed almost tangible, pressing against their skin. "I don't like this," Mark said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It feels like we're being watched." Nikita led the way, her flashlight beam piercing the darkness. As they walked, they saw patient cells with iron bars, their interiors filled with decayed mattresses and tattered clothing. Strange symbols were etched into the walls, and the temperature dropped even further. Suddenly, a series of ghostly figures materialized in the distance, patients in tattered hospital gowns, their faces twisted in anguish. They seemed to be reenacting scenes of torment, their spectral forms drifting aimlessly through the air. "Are those ghosts?" Lily whispered, her voice trembling. "Yes," Nikita replied, her heart pounding. "And they look like they're in pain." The figures seemed to notice the intruders, their eyes turning towards the group with a mix of confusion and sorrow. The temperature dropped even further, and the oppressive darkness seemed to close in around them. Determined to understand what was happening, the group stumbled upon a small office filled with old medical records and personal journals. Dusty and brittle, the documents chronicled a series of inhumane experiments conducted by Dr. Victor Kane. Dr. Kane was obsessed with finding a cure for mental illness, Mark read aloud from one of the journals. But his methods were brutal. He conducted lobotomies, administered high doses of untested drugs, and subjected patients to severe psychological stress. Nikita's heart sank as she read through the records. This explains the suffering we're seeing. These spirits are trapped here, reliving their torment. As they continued to sift through the documents, the whispers grew louder, filling the air with a chorus of mournful cries. The spirits were not just haunting the asylum. They were seeking justice for the horrors they endured. The group's discovery of Dr. Kane's experiments only seemed to provoke the spirits further. As they gathered in the central ward, the once subtle whispers grew into anguished wails. The air became thick with a sense of malevolence. Without warning, the vengeful spirit of Dr. Kane appeared, his spectral form twisted in anger. His eyes glowed with a malevolent light as he pointed towards the explorers, as if accusing them of the suffering he had caused. "You should not have come here," Dr. Kane's voice echoed through the hallways, filled with a chilling authority. "You have disturbed the eternal rest of my patients. Now, you will join them." Panic set in as the explorers realized they were trapped. The doors slammed shut, and the walls seemed to close in around them. The spirits, once mournful, now roared with fury, their ghostly forms reaching out to drag the intruders into their realm of torment. Nikita and her team were separated as the asylum's malevolent forces pulled them in different directions. Each member faced their own personal fears and regrets, brought to life by the spirit's malevolent influence. Nikita found herself in a cell resembling one she had seen in a photograph from the asylum's past. The ghostly figure of a young woman, her face twisted in agony, approached her. The woman's eyes were filled with despair and accusation. "I'm sorry," Nikita said, her voice breaking. "I didn't mean to disturb you. I'm here to help, not to harm." The ghost seemed to sense Nikita's genuine remorse. Through the woman's anguished wails, Nikita heard a plea for justice, a cry for recognition of the suffering endured. Determined to make amends, Nikita vowed to find a way to free the spirits from their torment. Reuniting with her team, Nikita led them to the Asylum's old chapel, where the final confrontation with Dr. Kane's spirit awaited. The chapel, once a place of false solace, was now a battleground of spectral fury. Dr. Kane appeared in full force, his rage palpable as he unleashed a torrent of ghostly energy. The team fought back with whatever they had, using their knowledge of the Asylum's history and the records they had uncovered. As Nikita and her team faced the malevolent doctor, they realized that the key to their survival lay in acknowledging the spirit's suffering and vowing to spread their story. By giving the victims a voice and seeking justice for their torment, they could weaken Dr. Kane's hold on the asylum. With a final, desperate effort, Nikita and her team managed to break through Dr. Kane's malevolent force, causing the spirits to find some measure of peace. The asylum's oppressive grip began to loosen, and the spirits' anguished cries faded into a mournful silence. Emerging from the asylum as dawn broke, Nikita and her team were forever changed by their ordeal. The once feared Holleridge Asylum now stood silent, its ghosts finally released from their torment. The oppressive fog that had hung over the building seemed to lift, replaced by the soft light of morning. Nikita and her team gathered outside, their faces pale and drawn but resolute. The ordeal had tested their limits, but they had survived and uncovered the truth behind Holleridge's dark history. Each member of the group bore the marks of their harrowing experience, bruises of fear and exhaustion, but also a shared sense of purpose. "I can't believe it's over," Lily said, her voice trembling as she looked back at the asylum's dark silhouette. "I never thought we'd make it out alive." "Neither did I," Mark admitted, his eyes still wide with the shock of their experiences. "But we did, and now we have a duty to tell the world what happened here." Nikita nodded in agreement. "We need to make sure the story of Holleridge is heard. The spirits have been freed, but their suffering shouldn't be forgotten. People need to know the truth." As the team prepared to leave, Nikita took one last look at the asylum. The building, though still imposing, seemed to have lost some of its malevolent aura. The dawn light revealed the full extent of the damage, crumbling walls, broken windows, and the ravages of time. Yet there was a strange sense of peace in the morning light. "Let's get out of here," Jake said, his voice softer than before. "We've done what we came to do." The drive away from Holleridge was quiet. Each member of the team was lost in their thoughts, reflecting on the ordeal they had just endured. The once ordinary landscape of their journey now seemed imbued with a deeper significance. As they reached civilization, Nikita could not shake the feeling that Holleridge had left an indelible mark on her. The spirit's stories had become intertwined with her own, their anguish and their plea for justice echoing in her mind. Weeks later, Nikita sat in her small, cluttered office, surrounded by the evidence of their ordeal. The photographs, recordings, and journals they had collected were spread out before her. Each image and note told a story of suffering and resilience. The media coverage of their story had been substantial, the truth of Holleridge Asylum's past making headlines across the nation. Nikita had worked tirelessly to compile their findings, ensuring that the spirits of Holleridge were not forgotten. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. It was Mark, looking more composed than when they had last seen him. "How's the work coming along?" "It's overwhelming," Nikita replied, rubbing her tired eyes. "But necessary. We have to make sure their voices are heard." Mark nodded, stepping into the room and looking around. "I've been thinking about what we went through. It's more than just a story of haunted halls and vengeful spirits. It's a reminder of the importance of compassion and justice." Nikita agreed. "Yes, Holleridge was a place where humanity was lost, where people were treated as experiments rather than individuals. Our job is to remind everyone of their humanity. As they talked, Lily and Jake joined them, and the team reflected on their experiences. Each one had been changed by the asylum, their perspectives on life and death altered by the ghosts they had encountered. They spoke of their plans to continue their work, to uncover more forgotten histories, and to ensure that the voices of the past were never silenced again. The months passed, and Nikita found a new sense of purpose. The stories she had uncovered at Holleridge had ignited a desire to explore and document the darker corners of history, to shed light on the forgotten and the overlooked. Nikita's work on Holleridge had not only exposed the horrors of the past, but had also inspired a movement to remember and honor those who had suffered. The asylum, once a symbol of cruelty and neglect, was now a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the importance of justice. The team remained close, their bond forged in the fires of their shared ordeal. They continued to explore abandoned places, always seeking to uncover truths and to give voice to the silenced. One day, as Nikita stood by the window of her office, looking out at the bustling city below, she felt a sense of calm. The ghosts of Holleridge had found their peace, and she had found her calling. The shadows of the past were no longer just haunting memories. They were a call to action, a reminder that the past must be acknowledged and the present must strive to be better. As the sun set over the city, casting long shadows across the streets, Nikita knew that the echoes of Holleridge would forever resonate within her. The asylum's dark history had been brought to light, and in doing so, it had given her a new direction, a new purpose. The journey had been terrifying and transformative, but it had ultimately led her to a place of understanding and resolve. The ghosts of Holleridge had been set free, and in their wake, a new chapter had begun, one where the past was remembered and the future was shaped by the lessons learned from the darkness. Jessica Carter and her team, Mark, Lily, and Jake, stood at the edge of the Holleridge Asylum grounds, their breath visible in the cold night air. The asylum loomed ahead, its towering silhouette cast in shadow by the moonlight. It was a place of fear and legend, rumored to be haunted by the souls of its former patients and the malevolent spirit of Dr. Victor Kane. "This is it," Jessica said, her voice steady despite the apprehension she felt. She adjusted her camera strap, ready to capture the decaying grandeur of the asylum. "Remember, we're here to document and explore, not to get ourselves killed." Mark, the historian of the group, checked his flashlight. "I've read about the atrocities committed here. The place is infamous for its cruelty." Lily, the tech specialist, fiddled with her equipment. "Let's just hope the only thing we encounter is a few rats and some creaky floorboards." Jake, the skeptic, eyed the rusted gate. "Let's get this over with. I'm not sure if I believe in ghosts, but this place gives me the creeps." The group squeezed through a gap in the fence and made their way towards the main entrance. The asylum's doors were locked, but a well-practiced combination of tools and determination soon had them inside. The corridor they entered was lined with peeling wallpaper and broken tiles. The air was thick with dust, and the silence was oppressive. Their flashlights cut through the darkness, revealing a maze of abandoned rooms and decrepit furniture. As they explored, the team stumbled upon an array of disturbing artifacts. Hidden chambers revealed old medical equipment, rusted gurneys, cracked vials, and glass jars filled with preserved organs. Each discovery was more unsettling than the last, hinting at the horrors that had transpired within these walls. "Look at this," Lily said, holding up a jar containing a preserved brain. "This is beyond anything I've ever seen." Jessica photographed the grotesque items, her camera clicking steadily. "We need to find out more about what happened here. There must be some records or documents." In one of the rooms, they discovered a collection of unsettling photographs depicting patients in various states of distress. The images were haunting, capturing the raw agony of those subjected to Dr. Kane's experiments. Mark's face paled as he examined an old journal lying among the debris. This looks like it might belong to Dr. Kane. It's filled with notes and sketches about his experiments. The journal revealed the disturbing details of Dr. Kane's descent into madness. His entries chronicled a growing obsession with unlocking the secrets of the human mind. He detailed his experiments, treatments that ranged from lobotomies to extreme psychological manipulation. "It's like he was trying to turn people into something else," Mark said, reading aloud. "He wanted to push the boundaries of human consciousness, no matter the cost." Jessica felt a chill as she read the doctor's accounts of his methods. This is horrific. He was obsessed with breaking people's minds to understand them. No wonder the place is so dark. As they delved deeper into the journal, they discovered a series of coded entries and sketches of strange devices. The journal hinted at a final, grand experiment, one that had never been completed. The deeper they explored, the more the asylum seemed to come alive with malevolent energy. The air grew colder, and the shadows seemed to twist and shift around them. Hallucinations began to plague the group. Visions of grotesque figures and distorted faces appeared in the corners of their vision. "Is anyone else seeing this?" Jake asked, his voice shaky as he saw a shadowy figure dart past a doorway. "Yeah, I'm seeing it too," Lily said, trying to steady her voice. "It must be a trick of the light or something." But the hallucinations grew more intense. The explorers encountered grotesque manifestations of the doctor's failed experiments, patients with distorted features, their bodies twisted and deformed by the cruel treatments they had endured. In one room, a spectral figure of a patient in a straitjacket reached out to them with a mournful wail. The group fled, their fear escalating as the asylum seemed to close in around them. Chapter 5: Race Against Time. Desperate to escape, the explorers began to solve the puzzles left behind by Dr. Kane. The asylum was a labyrinth of hidden passages and secret chambers, each filled with cryptic clues and increasingly sinister traps. The group's initial confidence had been replaced by a gnawing sense of urgency as they navigated the dark corridors, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. Jessica held up a faded map they had found, its edges curling with age. "We need to find the experimental chamber. According to the journal, it's where the final experiment was conducted." Mark studied the symbols on the map. "These symbols match those we saw in that hidden room. We're getting closer." The asylum seemed to resist their progress, with eerie noises echoing through the halls and the temperature dropping further. Flickering lights cast long, dancing shadows that played tricks on their eyes. The spirits grew more aggressive, manifesting with a vengeance as they sensed the explorers' desperation. Lily's tech equipment began to malfunction, and the group was plunged into darkness. "I can't get anything to work," she shouted, her panic evident. "Stay calm," Jessica said, her voice firm. "We need to rely on our instincts now." They stumbled through the darkness, guided only by the faint beam of Jessica's flashlight and the distant whispers of the spirits. Each wrong turn seemed to bring them closer to the asylum's heart of malevolence. After what felt like hours, the group finally reached a heavily reinforced door, marked with the same disturbing symbols from the journal. The door creaked open, revealing a chamber unlike any they had seen before. The room was dominated by a grotesque contraption, a massive, pulsating machine surrounded by arcane symbols and strange artifacts. "This must be it," Jessica said, her voice echoing in the chamber. "The final experiment." The machine was a nightmarish fusion of mechanical and mystical elements. Tubes and wires snaked around it, leading to a shimmering portal at its center. The portal pulsed with a sickly light, and strange whispers emanated from it, as though the souls trapped within were trying to communicate. Mark's face turned pale as he took in the scene. This is beyond anything I imagined. It's a gateway to another realm. Before they could react, the spirits of the asylum surged into the chamber. The vengeful apparitions and the malevolent presence of Dr. Kane materialized, their forms writhing and distorting in the flickering light. "You've come too far," Dr. Kane's ghost intoned, his voice a cold, mocking echo. "You cannot escape the consequences of your intrusion." The room was filled with a cacophony of anguished cries as the spirits sought to break free from their prison. The explorers were overwhelmed by the sheer force of their rage and desperation. With the spirits closing in, Jessica and her team had to act quickly. They deciphered the last clues from the doctor's journal, which detailed a series of actions needed to deactivate the machine and close the portal. Jessica and Mark worked together to dismantle the contraption, while Lily and Jake held off the spirits, their efforts fueled by sheer adrenaline and fear. The room became a battleground as the spirits fought to maintain their link to the living world. "I'm almost there," Mark shouted, his hands shaking as he worked on the machine. Jessica glanced at the portal, which seemed to pulse with a malevolent life of its own. "Hurry! We need to close it before they break through." The tension reached a breaking point as the machine sputtered and sparked. The portal's light grew blinding, and the spirits' cries grew louder. With one final, desperate effort, Jessica and Mark completed the ritual described in the journal. The portal's light dimmed, and the machine fell silent. The spirits, now wailing in despair, began to dissolve into the darkness. The oppressive atmosphere of the asylum lifted slightly, as though a great weight had been removed. As dawn broke, the explorers emerged from the asylum, their faces haggard but resolute. The once menacing structure now seemed less foreboding, as through the darkness that had pervaded, it was finally lifting. Jessica stood outside the asylum, her camera dangling at her side. She looked back at the crumbling edifice, reflecting on their harrowing experience. The truth of Holleridge Asylum had been revealed, and its dark legacy exposed. "The asylum may be free of its most malevolent presence," Jessica said, her voice soft but determined, "but its story will remain with us forever. We've faced the darkness, and in doing so, we've made sure it's not forgotten." Mark, Lily, and Jake gathered around, their expressions a mix of relief and exhaustion. They knew their lives had been changed irrevocably by what they had witnessed, and the echoes of Holleridge would remain with them always. As they walked away from the asylum, Jessica took one last look at the ruins. The morning light bathed the asylum in a different hue, a stark contrast to the darkness they had encountered within. The echoes of the past were now laid bare, and the spirits of Holleridge could finally rest. Jessica and her team had faced their worst fears and survived, but the scars of their ordeal would linger, a reminder of the darkness they had encountered and the strength they had found within themselves. Jennifer Davidson and her team, Mark, Lily, and Jake, stood at the entrance of Holleridge Asylum, their faces illuminated by the weak glow of their flashlights. The asylum loomed ahead, a dark, foreboding structure that seemed to pulse with an unsettling energy. "Are you sure this is the right place?" Jake asked, his voice laced with apprehension. "This place looks like it hasn't been touched in decades." Jennifer glanced at the crumbling facade, her eyes reflecting a mixture of excitement and trepidation. "This is definitely it. The reports of paranormal activity and the mysterious disappearances are all centered here." Mark, holding a flashlight and a stack of old records, nodded. "I've read about the asylum's dark history. The place was shut down after a series of unexplained deaths and sightings of shadowy figures. We're here to find out the truth." Lily, the tech specialist, adjusted her equipment. "Let's make this quick." The sooner we get in and document what we find, the sooner we can get out. The group entered through a side door that had been pried open, revealing a dark, silent hallway. The air was thick with dust and the faint smell of decay lingered. Their footsteps echoed through the empty corridors as they ventured further into the asylum. As they explored, they found themselves surrounded by the remnants of the asylum's past. Medical equipment lay scattered, covered in layers of grime. Old photographs and documents were strewn across the floor, hinting at the lives that had once filled these halls. Jennifer picked up a dusty file, revealing a series of unsettling records. These are patient records. They detail treatments and conditions, but many are incomplete or missing. Mark scanned a wall covered in strange symbols and notes. This looks like some sort of ritualistic writing. It might be related to the phenomena reported here. The team's curiosity was piqued as they discovered a room filled with old journals and patient files. The entries were filled with accounts of inexplicable deaths and sightings of shadowy figures. The asylum's dark history began to unfold before them. As they delved deeper into the asylum, the atmosphere grew colder. The explorers encountered inexplicable cold spots, and eerie whispers filled the air. Shadows seemed to move of their own accord, and the sound of phantom footsteps echoed in the distance. "I'm getting a really bad vibe here," Lily said, her voice trembling as she scanned the area with her equipment. "Something feels off." Jennifer tried to stay calm, but the unsettling occurrences were taking their toll. "We need to keep moving. We're here to document this place and understand what's causing these phenomena." The team pressed on, their fear mounting with each step. The whispers grew louder and the shadows seemed to close in on them, making the asylum feel like a living, breathing entity. In their search for answers, the explorers discovered old patient records and personal journals detailing the tragic stories of those who had perished in the asylum. The records spoke of cruel treatments, unexplained deaths, and a growing sense of despair among the patients. Jennifer read aloud from a journal, her voice filled with sorrow. One entry describes a patient who vanished without a trace. The staff claimed she was taken by the shadows. Mark's face was grim as he flipped through the documents. The more we uncover, the clearer it becomes that something malevolent is tied to this place. It's feeding off the suffering and fear of those who died here. The explorers realized that the entity haunting the asylum was not merely a collection of restless spirits, but a powerful force that had absorbed the anguish of its victims. The entity revealed itself as the explorers ventured further into the asylum. It manifested as a dark, oppressive presence that seemed to warp reality around them. Cold spots grew colder, and the whispers became a cacophony of anguished cries. "Look at that!" Jake shouted, pointing at a shadowy figure that seemed to flicker in and out of existence. "It's like the darkness itself is alive." The entity's malevolence grew stronger as it fed on the explorers' fear. The group was subjected to terrifying visions and distorted perceptions, their sense of reality unraveling. "We need to find a way to break its hold," Jennifer said, her voice steady despite the fear gripping her. "The records mentioned a way to weaken the entity, but we need to figure out how." The explorers raced against time as the entity's attacks grew more intense. They faced hallucinations, dangerous illusions, and physical threats that seemed almost alive. The asylum's walls pulsed with a malevolent energy, making every corner a potential trap. "Jennifer, look!" Lily cried, pointing to a flickering light in a distant hallway. "That's where we need to go." Jennifer nodded, her determination unshaken. "That's where the journal indicated we might find clues about the ritual. We have to reach it." Navigating through the asylum became a struggle against not just the entity, but their own mounting fears. Cold drafts and sudden drops in temperature indicated the entity's presence, and the group's resolve was tested as they were confronted with their darkest anxieties. Mark and Jake worked together to decipher the journal's cryptic instructions, while Jennifer and Lily collected the necessary items from the asylum's decaying remnants. The entity's influence twisted their surroundings, making even the simplest tasks perilous. "Be careful," Jennifer warned as an unseen force nearly toppled Lily over. "We're close to completing the ritual, but we have to stay focused." The group struggled to gather the items outlined in the journal: candles, symbolic relics, and ancient herbs. The asylum's atmosphere grew more oppressive, and the entity's attempts to sabotage their efforts intensified. They had to work quickly to complete the ritual before the entity overwhelmed them. With the ritual items assembled, Jennifer and her team began the intricate process of performing the ritual described in the doctor's journal. The asylum's cold, dark halls seemed to close in on them, the air thick with malevolent energy. As they arranged the candles and placed the relics in the prescribed positions, the entity's presence became almost tangible. Shadows writhed and twisted, and a chilling wind swept through the room, threatening to extinguish the candles and disrupt their efforts. "You can't escape," the entity roared, its voice echoing through the asylum with a mix of anger and despair. "You're mine." Jennifer fought to keep her composure, her hands steady as she completed the ritual's final steps. "Stay focused. We're almost there." The team chanted the incantations from the journal, their voices trembling but determined. The asylum seemed to shudder as the ritual's power took effect, a blinding light filling the room as the portal began to open. The entity's form wavered, its power weakening as the ritual disrupted its hold over the asylum. The blinding light grew brighter, and the oppressive atmosphere began to lift. The shadows that had once been so threatening dissipated, and the entity's anguished cries grew fainter. As dawn broke, the explorers emerged from Holleridge Asylum, their faces etched with exhaustion and relief. The once terrifying structure now appeared less menacing, the darkness that had clung to it seeming to have lifted. Jennifer looked back at the asylum, her camera still clutched in her hand. The sunlight revealed the asylum in a different light, less a place of terror and more a relic of a dark chapter now closed. "We've done it," Jennifer said quietly. "The entity is gone and the asylum is free." The team gathered outside, reflecting on their harrowing experience. They had confronted their worst fears, uncovered the asylum's tragic history, and ultimately succeeded in breaking the entity's hold. "I don't think any of us will ever forget what we went through," Mark said, his voice heavy with the weight of their ordeal. "But at least we know we made a difference." Lily nodded in agreement, her eyes scanning the now quiet asylum. "It's over. We've uncovered the truth and put an end to the suffering." As they drove away from the asylum, the memories of their experience lingered, but so did the sense of accomplishment. They had faced darkness and emerged victorious, and the echoes of Holleridge Asylum would no longer haunt the living. Jennifer glanced back one last time, a mixture of relief and sadness in her eyes. The asylum's legacy of suffering had been confronted, and the darkness that had once plagued it had been dispelled. With a deep breath, Jennifer turned her gaze forward, ready to face whatever new challenges lay ahead, knowing that the strength and courage she had found within herself would carry her through.
Thank you for joining us on this terrifying journey through Holleridge Asylum. We hope you've managed to keep the darkness at bay as you uncovered the chilling secrets of the abandoned facility. If you've found yourself haunted by the shadows and intrigued by the tale, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more spine-tingling stories that lurk in the corners of the unknown. Until next time, remember, sometimes the scariest things are the ones that never leave the darkness. Stay safe and keep your lights on. This has been Fear Files. Sleep tight if you can.